everybody and welcome back to What Culture Gaming. I'm Ben from What Culture.
And I'm Scott from What Culture.
And today we're going to be talking about Zelda Breath of the Wild.
We are, as much as we can, being that we're a little bit hamstrung and sort of slightly choked to death by an embargo.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most, not the most restrictive, but in terms of the wording, it's very specific on what we can't talk about. Now, I haven't actually played it, you have.
Yes.
You've got a Switch.
Yes.
We unboxed that, you would have seen that video go up on the channel hopefully the other day.
I hope so, yeah.
At this point.
Yes.
So, this game, flagship title, I think it's fair to say for the Switch at this point, at least certainly at launch. What's it about? What's going on?
Well, that's okay. One of the things that I can't go into is the depth of the world, but the you wouldn't believe the amount of stuff that I can't say.
Give me the elevator pitch then. Is there a princess that needs rescuing?
Yes, and she's called Zelda, and you wake up in a tomb, and you're Link. You wake up, you find a magical tablet called a Sheikah Slate. It turns out that thing's kind of like a valuable iPhone type device. It's just their excuse to have selfies. You can do selfies as Link.
No.
It's a little bit weird. Okay. Don't worry about it.
Right.
But you wake up in this tomb, and you've got to go save some people from a giant destructive force, which I believe has already been out there called... Did I say that? Maybe it's not.
Let's check the embargo.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't talk about that. We've just checked. Come on, Scott, carry on.
There's definitely an evil force, but I can't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
So you're going up against that, and to do so, you're going to want to explore, and it's a very open-ended, it's a very open-world game. I literally can't do anything about the quests, so it's just ridiculous.
Okay, let me ask you some very general questions.
Yes, do that.
So, open world. I think, is this one of the first Zelda I know Zelda games have been open world before, but possibly not quite to the extent that this one is.
Yeah, they've definitely explored these things in the past. I mean, the original Link to the Past, the original Zelda was definitely like an open-ended kind of thing where you just pick a direction and go. And I really love that they've carried that forward. To be honest, like, in a weird way, because my favorite Zelda, hipster alert, is the original. I really love the original Zelda. I think it's got a certain charm to it. And this one kind of feels like a weird... Like, if you made this, if the series was never iterated on since the first one, and it came back and Nintendo were like, we're going to resurrect our classic, and you went straight to Breath of the Wild, it kind of feels like a natural evolution of it. Like, in all the kind of, like, the discoverable kind of sense and the exploration and, like, this idea of just picking a direction and going. I love all that stuff. And, like, yeah, they've experimented with open world stuff in Wind Waker before, and Ocarina was kind of open, but this is the first time they've really done, like, as a genre, like, as a game, it's definitely open-ended from the beginning. So,
okay.
It's cool.
Now, within this, because I think this is probably... People have come to expect what they've come to expect of a Zelda game at this point. There's going to be dungeons, there's going to be puzzles, and I know we can't speak specifically
there are definitely
about
puzzles.
What those are,
yes.
But I think because the open world has been enhanced so much, and it's very much the focus, it feels, of this game, what are some of the cool stuff that you've been able to do and that you can do in the open world that people might not be familiar with?
Well, I think one of the things that's really cool is like they've got like a whole physics engine to it. Like it feels almost like Havoc physics, where it's as you're exploring, you'll find little like goblin camps and like NPCs that you want to talk to. There's like farmers, like people going about their day and things like that. But when you approach like a group of bandits or like a group of goblins, bokoblins that you want to take out, you can kind of like play with the environment a bit. Like you might roll a boulder down onto them, or you might use a special power to sort of interact with them in a unique way, or you might use like a bomb arrow or a fire arrow to set fire to something and blow them up that way. Over time you get like a kind of an array of powers, like whether that's like stopping time or like using like a magnet to sort of move objects around. The magnet thing was in our Gamescom coverage, I think, or it's been seen in the past anyway. And there's also like a few other things that you can use to interact with the world, like bombs and things like that. But they're all just like on hand, like they replenish really fast, and like it kind of just encourages you like to factor into that whole like mischievous way of approaching the world, of like seeing a bunch of enemies and going like, okay, I'm gonna like grab that, I'm gonna throw that, and I'm gonna like mess with this, I'm gonna freeze time, I'm gonna attack this. Like it's really cool. So it's just like that's like another aspect of how combat's kind of evolved, because I don't think, I could be showing my age or I'm forgetting something, I don't think they've ever done special powers like that in any other Zelda. Just it kind of immediately gives you like a bigger repertoire of how to approach enemies that I think hasn't really been in other Zeldas. For the most part, the way I've played Zeldas, especially in the 3D ones, is just lock on. You might jump, you might dodge a little bit, but mostly you'll just hammer and attack, and there's not that much to it. They've kind of revamped some things like that. You can do like a slow motion dodge now if you time it right. You can parry.
Okay.
And like weapons have degradations, so you've always got to be aware of what attacks you're doing and how much you're defending.
I think you can cook in this game. Is
you
that
can.
Right? So you can make little campfires and stuff like that. Is that similar to how Final Fantasy 15 does it, or can you set up a campfire anywhere? Are there predetermined campfires?
You can pick up like clumps of, you can hack down a tree, smash that into pieces, get your gathering of wood, put it down, get a fire, set that alight. I haven't done that yet, but I think that'll create a dynamic campfire. There are specific campfires, and you like select a bunch of stuff from your for your inventory, and he just like Link just like is waylaid down with it, and you just like chuck it all on the fire. It does a lovely little jingle as it all cooks, and then different combinations produce different meals. So like if you put a bunch of mushrooms and apples down or whatever, not that they go together, Jesus Christ,
delicious.
Maybe they will be, and then that might restore like 3 or 4 hearts instead of the apple by itself. I set fire to a giant beast. I think it's just called a goblin. I set fire to one of them, and when it died, it produced some already cooked meat because it was on fire.
Minecraft,
which I thought was great.
Jeez, wow.
And then they do that with like some of the like animals in the environment as well. Like I flambéed like a bull, and then it just like it popped into some already cooked meat, as opposed to if you just like ping it in the face, it'll just be like raw meat.
Right.
I love that. One of the biggest things about the game is how much they've put survival aspects like to the forefront. Like you always know what temperature you are, you always know how much noise you're making, you always know the time of the day, and all of those things like feed into one another. So like the world itself is actually like really hard, like quite brutally hard. Like occasionally you'll come across an enemy that'll just wipe you out.
Right.
And like in terms of exploring and coming across other animals and stuff, like yeah, you can take them out and like they harvest their parts to like make food or whatever. But like you can also like chop the trees down, and like yeah, it always feels like the world is like vast and huge. In that sense that you kind of got from the very first Zelda, where you didn't know what you were going to see next.
Right.
Like it's quite sparse. It's not anywhere near as populated as something like Horizon or like Far Cry or whatever. But there are little pockets of things to do. Can't tell you all the things that you can do. There's a lot of things in there. Because Breath of the Wild lets you climb anything, you can just point in a direction and be like, oh, I'm going to climb that cliff, and I'm going to like swim through there, or I'm going to do whatever. And it kind of made me like appreciate a 3D world that I don't think any other game apart from like Grow Home has done in a while.
Wow.
And it's a weird recommendation because it's an old school thing, but it kind of just made me go like, okay, you guys have really thought about like verticality as much as like the horizontal exploration, which is like, again, a weird thing to point out, but I really love that kind of stuff. So even though the world is a little bit sparse, I did enjoy just exploring it. It feels like you're like exploring, like you're getting up a place, or you're taking something out. Like, yeah, it's very like survivalist. Like you always want to make sure you've got food and resources to craft and things like that.
So you played a fair few hours of it now. You've got a decent way through the game.
Yes.
Is there something that's really stood out to you so far apart from this exploration element?
Yeah, mostly the art style. It's really gorgeous because like obviously I'm playing on the Switch, which like if you've looked at the hardware specs for the Switch, you'll be aware that system is below the PS4, below the Xbox, especially below the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio.
Right.
But because it is cell shaded and because it's got the whole Nintendo seal of quality like approach to it, every like what it lacks in maybe like rendering or like basic rendering techniques, it makes up for in like dynamic lighting and just like the general look of the characters. Like the art style is very strong. It might not be like have a graphical punch in the same way that something like an Uncharted would, where you're marveling at like facial tech, but like you'll come around the crest of a hill and the sun will just like catch the grass, or like maybe you'll be in like a storm and the wind's just like the wind's like battering down on you, and because of all the other survival aspects, it really just hits you like you're just this one dude alone adventuring, trying to do what you're trying to do.
Whatever that might be.
Whatever that is. And that sort of stuff is really good. So like yeah, like in terms of like wow moments, although I really love the combat, it's the graphics. Like every now and then, like it's just the general art style. It just kind of hits you, and you're just like, this looks really lush.
So there we go. That's our first impressions. Zelda Breath of the Wild. We will have a full review out very soon, so make sure you check back. And as always, thanks for watching.
Bye.